See, if you were nice enough like Richard to record this for me, then all you have to do is just keep playing it over and over again. Yes?
Would you consider doing a session next year at Yom Limmud on this subject?
I have done this at Yom Limmud.
No, with your book, though, now that you have your book.
I will consider it, but I will tell you I could have done it this present year, but I'm on the committee for the Yom Limmud for Houston, and I don't. It's for learning, not selling. Okay, so I would do it the same way I did it, and I would mention I have a book, but I'm not going to bring books there to sell. I'm sorry, what? Oh yes, my book was published 3 weeks after the deadline for this layout. So.
Oh, well, this always next year.
Yeah, and I will be up there for the book fair this year in November.
Rabbi, why do you think Christianity spread so far throughout the world as opposed to Judaism that really
First of all, for a lot of reasons, okay? First of all, if I am a pagan and I believe in a Dionysus, Attis, Ra, Mithra, Osiris, Perseus, and everybody else, whose mother was human, whose father was God, who was born in the winter, who died in the spring, whose death is seen as some sort of sacrificial thing to save me from eternity of hell or whatever, then when I hear the Christian story, not only does it sound like something I'm familiar with and I already believe in, but also by attaching it to Judaism, now it's not just going back to the Greek pagans, it goes back to creation, which means it's more authoritative somehow, because they've attached it to our Hebrew scriptures, so it gives them the added plus, I guess, of going back to creation, not just Olympus or whatever. Another reason why. Although I think that's the main reason. When Christianity spread, if you read the New Testament, the book of Acts especially, where did the disciples of Jesus go? Port cities. Port cities. So, and the Mediterranean is where everything happened. Okay? The Fertile Crescent, okay, everybody's going like this, all right? They went to port cities, which makes it easier to spread the faith, and easier to spread the faith to people who will recognize it as something they grew up with. This is something I say in my book, which kind of contradicts a lot of the scholars out there who will claim that the split between Judaism and Christianity didn't occur until the Bar Kokhba rebellion, 135 roughly, CE. Oh, well, the Jews had Bar Kokhba as their Messiah, he proved false. The Christians had their Messiah, Jesus, from the Jewish perspective, and that's where they split, because Christians had their Jesus and Jews had their Bar Kokhba. No. From the moment Christianity started saying he died for your sin, Jews said, wait a minute, I've heard this before. As soon as they started saying, born of a human mother with God as a father, which I mentioned in here, there are two Christian writers. Origen, who was an early church father, he's creating a dialogue to make it look like it's a straw dog. He's setting up this guy named Trypho. Trypho? Yeah, Trypho. Wait, I get the two mixed up. It's dialogue with Trypho, which is Origen, and that's Justin Martyr, and Contra Kelsum. So they both have their straw dogs. Kelsum for one guy, Trypho for the other, represent the Jewish objections in their day. And it referenced in my book, they put the words into the Jew's mouth. Well, your religion is no different than Perseus. They both choose Perseus, interestingly enough. And it gives the Christian a way to respond by saying, well, this is how God prepared the world for the real message of Christianity. Okay? So it's familiar to them. They went to the port cities, and that's why it spread. When Christianity became the dominant force of Rome, when Constantine made Rome Christian, he gave the death penalty at the Council of Nicaea for the Jews who were missionaries. 10% of Rome were Jews, because the Jews were missionaries up until the Council of Nicaea. And when Constantine would give the death penalty for any Jew caught missionizing, and anybody listening to the Jew, kind of makes it fall out of favor real quick.
May I say something?
Please.
I think,
Quickly, though.
I think another reason for the spread of Christianity was what the Islamic people are attempting to do now. Because of
What are they
violence.
doing? What are they doing now?
What the Islamic people are trying, the radical ones, they're bombing up places and killing people and trying to put in
And with
fear.
Constantine making Rome Christian, yes, there's an analogy to that.
And therefore, it was easier to become a Christian and just sort of blend in than to have to stand like the Jews did and not give in
See
to
you later.
that. And therefore, I think the use of fear is another reason that. so many
Well,
Christians
I would
say-
argue that if somebody hangs hell over your head and says you will go there, there are other ways to use fear to get you converted,
If you believe in hell.
if you believe in hell.
Is there going to be a sequel?
Actually, I'm strongly considering it. I had an exchange. Ever heard of Jewish Outreach Institute? He's, okay, wait a minute.
Black and white. Did you pick black and white on purpose?
Marcy picked black and white on purpose. She designed the cover, and the reason it's black and white is because it's an issue of black and white.
Right.
Okay? And by the way, Judaism is the white in the darkness.
That was
I
your
made that
idea.
up afterwards. Okay. Yes, Ron.
I heard the Barnes and Noble manager said that there was a book signing coming up there. Is that scheduled already?
No, not that I know of.
You said you were going to be there signing your book sometime.
I would love to be, absolutely. By the way, yes.
The smart missionaries are incorporating part of paganistic practices so they can make them egress out.
And that's another way that early Christianity ingratiated themselves to the pagans, because the rituals they demanded were already familiar to their targets. That's why, by the way, Christians now who missionize Jews, like the Jews for Jesus, or the Hebrew Christians, or the Messianic Jews, or whatever they're going by this week, will take Jewish ceremonies and try to make them look Christian. Which reminds me, even if, God forbid, you should not buy my book, I have copies of an article that I think is in this month's or next month's Reform Judaism magazine, whose title is, "Was Jesus' Last Supper a Passover Seder?" And his conclusion is, absolutely not. And he gives all the evidence from the New Testament itself, which, by the way, is a lot similar to an article I wrote years and years ago, but he's my teacher, so what can I say? So eventually,
I'll put them out on the table. You
put
can
them out
pick
on the
them
table
up
if you want.
as you-
okay, yes.
One of the explanations I had gotten about Christianity's easy spread is Jesus came along to fulfill prophecy. And that's why Christians who wanted to convert, or Jews who wanted to convert, no longer had to follow Jewish law, like not eating pork, circumcision.
Absolutely.
Real key.
But who is that attractive to? If a person is interested in a monotheist religion, okay, and they've got a choice of going to Judaism, which demands circumcision, okay, and you're a male,
Yeah.
okay, and Christianity makes it easier by getting rid of God's command to circumcise, okay, then the pagan is going to be more likely to go to Christianity, which, by the way, also represents an early split between Judaism and Christianity. James and Peter wanted to maintain Jewish law even within Christianity, and Paul wanted to completely get rid of it. In Acts 15, 16, 17, I can't remember exactly where it is, Paul gets pulled back to Rome, pulled back to Jerusalem, and basically he's told by the leaders, stop letting people come to Christianity easy. You still have to demand circumcision. So he lost the battle, but he won the war. And that's another reason why most of paganism would go to Christianity before they would go to Judaism.
Was Paul Jewish?
I'm sorry, what?
Was Paul Jewish? Paul, was he Jewish?
Paul is thought to have been Jewish, but Paul's name is Saul of Tarsus.
Ah,
Tarsus, a city on the Mediterranean, had as its patron god Mithra. Mithra, born in the winter, died in the spring, mother was human, father was God, death is considered a way to get eternal life. Sound familiar?
yes.
Paul, if in fact he was a Jew, which I highly doubt, because he misunderstands so much, mistranslates so much, or maybe that's the problem with the Greek, I'm not sure of that. If he was a Jew, was an incredibly assimilated Jew who knew far more about Hellenism than he did about Judaism.
Okay.
Rabbi, we had,
Okay.
time for